Hi and welcome to Combat Mission Beyond Overlord. I'm going to do a series of videos in which I'm going to be introducing Combat Mission in the channel, and what better place to do it than the Combat Mission Beyond Overlord, which is the first combat mission, the classical combat mission Beyond Overlord. So let's get on with it. To do this, I am also going to use the tutorial, and it's a 15 turns tiny map, and the description is a training scenario to be used with a tutorial in the game manual, and we have the option to select the US and the Nazi Germans. So this is the first map. This is a tiny map that has some roads in here. It has an objective in kind of the center. We have a river at the back with a couple of bridges. We have also here a small town and some agricultural fields. We have some trees in here in which we can move and conceal our troops. If we move into this type of view, we can see that I'm going to go down, further down. You can see that the terrain, even though it looks as if it is a flat terrain, it is not exactly a flat terrain, which comes very handy in a tutorial like this because it allows us to learn a lot. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about in this tutorial is the graphic representation of the units. You can see that we can see several guys. They are grabbing different types of weaponry. For example, here we have small soldiers. I'm going to go as close as we can. Here we see some soldiers grabbing some M1 Garands, and also we have people with machine guns. For example, this one here this is a machine gun. We will find some of them grabbing bazookas, RPGs, like this one over here. Then we have the representation also of the battlefield. We have roads, we have bushes, we have houses, we have tanks in here. This is the representation of the tanks. But the first thing that you're going to read in the manual is that pretty much this is because of the time period that Combat Mission Beyond Overlord was released. It was released in the early 2000s, and you will understand that the limitations of the computers in that time period were quite a lot in comparison with today. And basically what the manual is going to be clear at the first paragraph that you're going to read is that this thing that you're looking here is just a case, is just a representation, but does not has all of the algorithms and all the calculations represented graphically. And you will have to understand that most of the things happen under the hood, as the manual is going to state. So basically, in other words, Combat Mission Beyond Overlord is not using in-game pixels to represent the combat results. The next part is going to be how are you going to be able to navigate here. You can see that I have been moving the camera by going into the edges. You have the option to move like this, and you also have the option to move through these buttons down here. So you can move back, move forward, you can move to the sides, and you can rotate, and also you can change the levels of zoom, or the viewing levels. You can also use the numbers in your keyboard, and you will have from 1 to 8, 8 being the top-down view and 1 being the lowest level that you can see, which is ground level. In between them, if you go to 4, is the last number that is going to show you kind of perspective type of view. And then when you go to 5, you will start seeing the top down view like this. But as you go to 6, 7, and 8, you will see it further away. Returning again to the way of moving the actual camera with the mouse going into the edges. If you move, you can see the mouse here is in the center, and if I move here, it's going to rotate. But if I hold shift, I'm just going to pan the camera like doing this with this. Now, take note that if you do this with these buttons down here, the movement is going to be more smooth. At least that's my own way of feeling it. I can say that this movement is a little bit smooth in comparison with the edge panning, the edge rotation. Now there's another thing that if you rotate like this is the normal rotation. I'm going to go straight into the tank in here. If you rotate this normally, you are going to see that you are kind of rotating like you are stuck in a camera, stuck in a pole. That's the way I look at it. And if you click Shift J, you're going to see viewpoint rotate on, and this is going to be completely different. As you can see, I'm going to do it both. This is the standard one, and then this is the other one. So this is the way you rotate, like so, and Shift J is going to rotate like so. So I think that Shift J, which is going to show up in here, viewpoint rotate on, I think it's more like you are moving all of your body along with your head, if that makes sense. But the standard one is the rotate off. There is another way of moving around, and it's exactly what you're seeing, but it's a little bit choppy. How am I doing this? Just by using the arrow keys. I'm using the down arrow key, up arrow key, and left and right arrow keys. But I'm not recommending using this type of movement because, as you can see, it's a little bit clunky. The next thing that is important to say is that you can do a camera jump. How do you do a camera jump? By control clicking the exact area that you want to jump the camera to. For example, you are here and I want to jump in here. I hold control and I click the flag, and I'm going to be basically teleported into that specific location. You can do it as well. Again, control click. This is a way to move quickly into the map, and it comes pretty handy. You can click exactly the unit, and basically what it's going to do is to lock the camera into that unit. Okay, there's another thing that is very useful in combat mission. This also applies for modern combat missions. So you are going to select the unit. You can either click the unit or you can also do a marquee selection. I'm going to select the tank in here, the Sherman, and I'm going to hold and click tab. And basically what tab is lock the unit. So if you want to lock the unit, you can do that. You're going to see that if you rotate, you're going to break the lock, but basically the lock is used when all the action is happening and you want to follow specific units and you want to see what is happening when the turn goes and the turn develops. Okay, the next one is very, very important, and that is the zoom. The zoom in and zoom out. This is not doing this. Let's remember that this is changing the view, and the zoom in and zoom out is more like a zooming in and zooming out from binoculars. I'm going to tab the tank, and I'm going to go to the ground level here. And what I'm going to do is to show you what I mean by this. There are different levels. The levels are 1, 2, 4, and 8, and you're using the brackets to do this. So you have 1, 2, 4, and 8, basically. are this ones. This is 1, 2, 4, and 8. 1 counts as the exact original one, and then you go further like this. This is very useful because this way you can have a better understanding of your surroundings. Let's remember that in combat mission, it is recommended to go into the feet of your soldiers and try to see the point of view of the actual unit. It is time to talk about the scaling of the units. Let me show you here. This is a normal scaling, if I'm not mistaken. You can see that the unit is represented in here. You can see that all of the units are the same size. I'm just going to move over here with a control click and zoom in over here, and we're going to try to see into this side. You can see if I zoom in, which was the thing that I was trying to illustrate here, you can see that slightly we can see the head of the guy that is on the tank. That's pretty much the guy that is on the tank, right? But if we are in ground level, the only thing that we can see from this point of view is slightly the head popping up a little bit into that slope. Now, this is because this is a normal size of the units. If I click Shift C, you're going to see that the units, eventually the units in this side are going to appear here, and they are going to be huge in comparison. We have scale realistic, and then we have scale enlarged number 1, 2, 3, and 4. The thing is that basically what we're seeing here is not the same thing that as if the opponent, the AI, is not seeing this. This is purely for us, the users. In this case, we are the US. We're using these soldiers, this company, and this is just a representation, visual representation for us to have a better look at the actual map and see the units in enlarged, basically. So for example, the closer you are to the units, you're going to see that they are going to shrink, and the farther away you are, they are going to increase its size. So you can see it here in real time as I move. So this is pretty much a visual cue. Okay, before wrapping up, there are a couple of things that I want to address in this first video tutorial. I'm going to revert the units to their realistic size. Okay, the other thing that I want to talk about very quickly is that the actual thing that you go here when you say go and you start the actual thing, you're going to see here start, pause. You can actually pause and play, and you can move back and forward the actual action. So everything that happens, you can control it here, as you can see here. This is a system in which is called the WIGO system that is used here in combat mission. The WIGO system, just very quickly, is a system in which you give orders and you will just wait for 1 minute for those orders to develop in front of your screen, pretty much. And it is important to note that I'm going to make the units big, because it is important to note that I'm pretty sure that most of you that are not familiar with combat mission, the classical combat mission, you would think, okay, here we have 3 guys over here, or here we have 1 guy. Well, actually, this is just a representation as it is stated in the first part of the video and in the manual. This doesn't mean that in here you just have 1 guy. Actually, you can see here where is the actual helmet. You can see 4. This means that inside this representation, this tiny guy here, inside here, we have 4 people. So this is just a representation of the actual units. By the way, I think there's a way to change that. You can see here, basically here in hotkeys, you can see all of the hotkeys. You can see smoke graphics, occupied buildings. You can see show all moves, and it is just brightness. Where is it? Show unit details, move viewpoint, switch sides. You can actually switch sides. I editor only, and you have here show 3 men per squad. So you see Shift M. So basically what this is allowing us is, instead of showing 3 men per squad, you just can reduce the amount of units, these actual soldiers represented visually here. Okay, this is the normal one, which is called the show third squad member off on. So by default is on. So as just to make that clear here, if I click here, this is an actual rifle squad with 12 men inside. So that representation is not as in the modern combat missions, in which you actually see each of the individual pixel troop and soldiers. Here you have, for example, in the Sherman, you can see one guy which is here and another here, but basically inside you have 5 guys. This guy, for example, which is the guy with the machine gun, there are 6 guys in here. So you have to take that into account. Okay, I hope to see you in the next video.